Perfect. So thank you very much, Elena, for this great introduction. It was great. And so I was asked by Elena some months ago if I could do this talk. I didn't know if I could do it. I'm gonna try my best, and I hope that we all together learn something new. If it's not about BioimageIO Chatbot, it's about project engineering, and I'll try to do my best. So. Yeah, first of all, following the presentation that Elena did, I'm also part of the DBMJ team, a Fiji plugin that many of you might know. Also, I'm far from the Bioimage Model Zoo or BioimageIO community. I'm gonna do a bit of an introduction about this in some part because it's important to the topic. Of course, the BioimageIO chatbot. Then also part of the developing team of Samjay, a new plugin that we're developing for Fiji to do semi-automatic segmentation with SAM-like models. Then I'm part of the AI for Life project and a volunteer in the GloBias community. Also, if you need anything from me next week, I will be in I2K. So we can have a coffee, a chat, or whatever. So let's get into it. So when I was preparing this presentation, I was wondering what is people asking about Python and coding these days in ImageST forum, because this, if you don't know it, is the forum that bioimage analysis most used to answer questions about Python pipelines, workflows, how to analyze their images, or a lot of things. So I was going around through the ImageST forum and looked for something interesting that might give me some inspiration to do this talk. And I found a very interesting question or problem. There was a real life situation in which there was a postdoctoral researcher in Lausanne that she was asking if we knew any like the best way to find the best focus light in a data stack with Python. A problem that might be, I think it's a pretty real life situation, right? A simple code that has to be effective and working, and this might not happen as easy as it seems. So first of all, I want to thank Claudia. I have sent her an email because I don't know her, but her question has helped me a lot to do this presentation. So this is a problem, right? And she posted the question and she found some solutions for this. The first solution she found was to calculate the standard deviation of all the pixels of the image and take the one with the standard deviation that the highest one, which was the more focused. But the problem that she faced it was that this gave her almost a 60% of accuracy. So she kept looking for different solutions, and she found that another way to do it was with the variant of the Laplacian. The problem with this, she tested it and it gave her always the first slice as the more focused. So she had two different problems or two questions. One was if she was doing something wrong, is the code wrong? Or is there any error or mistake in the code? And the second one, is there any other way to do this? So imagine that we are Claudia and we have this problem. How can we solve it? The first attempt we could do would be to Google it. But for example, we see that there's not much Python in the first attempt of Googling it. That's exactly what I get if I Google that. I did it myself to see exactly what would get. So not the best approach, maybe. Another approach we could do is what Claudia did, that she did an amazing question with a lot of, with the code, the explanation and context and everything. And she got the reply and she got some very good answers. So that was a very good approach. And the third thing we could do would be to ask it to, for example, something that we all know, which is ChatGPT. This way we could have to change a bit the question. I will talk about this later, but there is these two questions that you can always also ask at the end. I more or less simply copied Claudia's question into ChatGPT with some changes. So now that we're here, we can think which one is the best, which is the best option. If you want to have something very quick, you could try to Google it. That's the easiest part, but maybe your results won't be very accurate. If you want, the best option for me will be always to ask to Emergency Forum, which is asking the community, and the people there will kindly support you and help you through the process of seeing what the problem is. Like the bioimage analysis community, we have to be very proud of us because we are always supporting and helping each other. But what's the problem? That Claudia got the answer 7 days after it. Of course, we are very supportive and kind, but we are not always checking Images Forum to try to answer the questions. So the other option that we had is to ask to ChatGPT, which would be something faster, but not as accurate as Images Forum. The first thing would be to pass from the question in Images Forum the day after we think that nobody has replied, maybe, would be to change a bit our query, right? The first thing it would be hello is a great greeting, but maybe you would like to give more context to ChatGPT. You would like to give your position. ChatGPT doesn't need your name, but of course it needs your position, your background, your knowledge. What do you do? What's the topic that you're doing? And all the context you can give. Then this is very stupid and simple thing, but this makes it much more easier. Just tell that you're introducing code and tell on which language you're doing it. This is very, very simple, but it changes a lot the result of your prompt, of your prompt, yeah. And then the other thing that I wanted to commend you here is that when she was posting the challenges, she said in the second question, which is the method that works best for you to detect the best focused slide? And I had one colleague that one day, as he knew I was using LLMs a lot, he said to me, but LLMs such as ChatGPT, it always gives you lists. It always gives a list, so let's embrace it. Lists from ChatGPT are very, very good. So just ask for lists and it will give you plenty of options. If you want a title for your new paper, don't ask for one title, ask for 10 titles and choose the one you like. So embrace lists. This is special for ChatGPT, of course. But there's some problems using LLMs, right? For example, imagine that me and Claudia, we want to reproduce the same workflow and we ask ChatGPT the same question. It doesn't need to give us the same answer. So here we can face the problem of the reproducibility. If she is in her lab in Lausanne and I'm in my lab in Madrid, we might ask the same and we might get a totally different answer. So maybe we're not reproducing the same steps and not getting the same result. Then there's a knowledge cutoff, right? ChatGPT, for example, and other LLMs will be you will have to be pending on updates. If you have published a paper last month, which is great, but they haven't updated the knowledge of the LLM, or they haven't retrained on it, or what the thing that they are doing with their model, it won't have this information. It might have it from looking through the internet, but the problem is that looking through the internet for an LLM is something as not as accurate as the other standard ways. And then it can have some biases in the responses. You don't know how this LLM was trained. You don't know which data has been used to train. You don't know if they have followed any ethical considerations to train their LLMs. So maybe can have some bias that you don't want to be. You don't want to have. And then, of course, the great problem of LLMs are hallucinations. The great problem of LLMs is the lack of awareness. They don't know what they don't know. This is something that we're facing every day, and this is a severe problem because when they don't know what they don't know, here's when they tend to do hallucinations. And then, if we focus on the topic that we have today, we have challenges and LLMs for Python coding. And I'm saying Python coding, but this could be moved to other languages. The first one is totally your fault. I'm so sorry. But your fault is ambiguity in prompts. I've seen people doing prompts for Python coding, saying just 3, 4 words as if they were Googling it. Or a friend of mine who's a cybersecurity expert telling me, why do I want to give ChatGPT all this information? Because you want to use it, right? If you want to use it, you want to make sure that the answer is good, you have to give a lot of context and explanations. The second part would be incomplete or inaccurate code. That would be because ChatGPT or an LLM or a chatbot is not able to run the code and check how it's going. So it might not get what you were expecting. Also, this can be due to ambiguity in prompts, of course. Then the next one is difficulty handling complex libraries. This applies also to APIs. If there are new or complex libraries or APIs with not a lot of documentation, it can be a problem. And then handling edge cases. As ChatGPT or whatever you're using does not have your data or your full code, for example, they might not be account for null values, large data sets, or unsupported data types. So, in order to be able to solve some of these problems, we came with the BioimageIO chatbot. The BioimageIO chatbot, I always said I'm not gonna get tired of doing this. It's a great work because we have a great group of people behind it working on it. Great science is done by great people, and that's very, very important to me. So with these people here and these institutions, we developed the biomaterial chatbot that I'm going to explain to you a bit if you don't know it yet. To give a bit of context, it all came and all was born because of the bioimage model Zoom. All those people that were part of the chatbot, we work on or we are part of the bioimage models community, which is a repository of models for bioimage analysis. Okay, it's a repository which is community driven because we are the models that are uploaded are usually from the community. Of course, we are also part of the community and we also upload models, but and then these models are uploaded and waiting for other people for the community to download these models. Everything is open source, all the code can be found on GitHub. So, and this way that we are contributing models, the special thing here is that we follow what we call the specs, which are a specification for the models that makes it cross-compatible. We have a set of softwares with this bioimage model zoo that are adhered that they comply with our specs. So this means that all these softwares are able to either consume or create like to download and run models or to create and export models for the bioimage model zoo. That means basically that we have a lot of softwares there to our specs capable to working with us. That also means that we have a lot, but a lot of documentation. A lot of documentation of the bioimage model zoo, a lot of documentation of each of these community partners. What this is how we call these softwares that comply with our specs. So this was our main idea, right? We have so many documentation, we have a lot of information that is getting too difficult for the user. How do we solve this? So this was the first idea for the chatbot, the retrieve time method generation. The retrieve time method generation is a way to give the information to a chatbot without having to retrain the chatbot. What we do is that we comply all the information, all the documentation for all softwares or community partners, as well as the bioimage model zoo. And what we do is to embed this documentation and store it in a vector database. With this, what we do is also to embed the answer of the user, and instead of retraining the chatbot, the information is retrieved. How? Doing a comparison between the documentation that we have and the prompt that the user made, and we're doing a comparison and looking, searching for this vector which is more similar between our question and our documentation. This way, what we avoid is one of the big problems of LLMs, which are hallucinations, because the information is there, it's not invented, it's only retrieved. So let's see a bit of how this chatbot works. This was the key idea of how the chatbot was born, but now we are a bit far from that. I said again, we have a team of great people. We've worked on it a lot, and now it looks more like this. We have three different ways to answer the questions of the people. We have what we call three different assistants. One is the bioimage seeker, the bioimage tutor, and bioimage analyst. Each of them has different features or capacities. The first one is the bioimage seeker. This would be the one with the RAG feature, which is the one able to retrieve the information from documentation and books. everything that you want to ask regarding any of the documentation of the community partners or the bioimage model zoo itself is there. But not only community partners, we have introduced much more documentation from that beginning. For example, from from ImageJ and other many other softwares. So, for example, if you upload the model for the Bioimage Model Zoo and you want to improve the discoverability of the model in the website, you can ask the chatbot how to do it. And from the documentation, it will tell you the answer. Is this question in the documentation directly? No, it's not. But the chatbot is able to construct this answer through this. Then also, another question you could ask to this bioimage seeker or mailman is to consult online databases and services. This we do it through the APIs, and we have access to many different APIs. One of them is the Human Protein Atlas. So it will be able to retrieve information from the Protein Atlas for you, as well as, for example, the Imagery Forum or the Bioimage Archive. The Bioimage Archive are also part of the AI for Life project, so this was something that we needed to do because we're all part of the same team. So you can ask for something, some data from the Bioimage Archive, and it will tell you where is it, how to find it, and the link to go to it, and how to download it. Then we can go to the tutor, to Bridget. The documentation on books from this assistant is a bit different, right? It's not about only documentation of the bioimage model zoo, community partners and all, but also books. We principally my supervisor did a research of bioimage analysis books, deep learning, microscopy, and books that were more theoretical, and uploaded to the database. This way, this assistant is thought to be kind of a tutor. What you would ask to your supervisor, technical questions, you can try to do it here faster. But of course, I will always advise to ask it also to your supervisor. Not because the information is not true, but because it's important when doing this kind of work. But this is, for example, some of the questions that you could ask. Arrate, my supervisor, when we were first testing this, she said that she was amazed how good it was. She was saying like, it's answering the way I would do. So it was really, really well. I really encourage you to test it. And then the last one, which is the bioimage analyst, which is able to run directly models. Currently, we are not able to run the bioimage models, but we have the cell post model able to run. This is because, for example, you want to test it before downloading all the cell post interface and everything. You can do some quick test with the BioimageIO Chatbot and give it your images, and it will segment them as easy as that. But this is what we were coming from, right? Prompt engineering, code, and Python code. Uh, the BioimageIO Seeker would be one of the assistants that you could ask for code, for programming and generating code. Also, you can ask to the AI models and analysis tools because it will do this because it has the coding capabilities too. But I find this one a bit more interesting. The bioimagery chatbot was not thought in the beginning to do to generate and correct code. But as we are using GPT for Turbo, it has its capability. But what do we have apart from GPT for Turbo? One thing is that you can see here. What we do with the chatbot is not only that we retrieve documentation or we access APIs, is that as we don't trust the user with their prompt engineering, we do it for the user. So first of all, you can select your profile, not select, input it. There's some fields in the BioimageIO chatbot in which you can say which is your position, which is your background, your knowledge, on all what you can, because it's not going to answer the same way if you're asking something from a biologist perspective than from a data science perspective. The answer is going to change a lot. Then we also give the context of the information, the user's query, and then we do some magic there. What we also do is that, for example, When you ask a question, we generate an answer, and this answer is given to the chatbot again as more context. This way, the chatbot has more context when it has to retrieve the last answer. And all of these tricks are what makes this um, code generation or questioning about code and all very efficient. So how it generates code? As I said, we have the GPT-4 Turbo, but the good thing is that we have also documentation and books, as we have for the others, and online databases and services, and what I said, user information, the prompt engineering part that we do, and everything. So I was testing this, and do you remember this when we were Claudia, and we were trying to get how to find the best focus lines into the stack with Python? We have these three options, but what if we asked it to the chatbot? So I did it. It's not, it looks a bit ugly this way, but it works, trust me. It's just not indented, but this is how I just copied the same and the same prompt that I gave to ChatGPT. I copied here. So the answer that I got is this one. It says what you should review from your code, like check this and that, other methods to do the focus detection. And then what was more interesting for me is when I discovered that. Say for further details and code examples, you can refer to the Images forum discussion. And I was wondering, which discussion? Yeah, it found the question from Claudia in Images forum that was already answered. So for me here, the thing to take into account is that sometimes when you're doing or coping with code, always think that most probably someone has done it before you. Someone had this problem. We are doing very new things and very innovative things, but probably if you're looking for some functions, some things to do that are not really complicated, not the full code, look around. Probably someone has done it for you. That's the first thing I think is the most important one. And then also from here, we see the good thing, right? That the BioimageIO chatbot has access to, for example, the API of Images Forum, and we get this answer. Also, I like to add that the BioimageIO chatbot knows how to do macro programming for ImageJ. You can ask it to do, for example, the standard deviation for macro programming or anything else. It works really, really well because it has all the information from ImageJ Fiji and the ImageSD forum. So it works really, really well. Something that the ChatGPT doesn't do as well as this. And then also a bonus track is that you can also ask other things like other plugins from ImageJ, from the Bioinformatics Index, and all this. So as it is not only for code generation and creation and correction, these also work really, really well. So now I wanted to, now that we hear, comment some good practices of using LLMs for Python programming. I might not, I don't know if I'm like the best person to do this. I haven't studied prompt engineering. I'm doing it a lot. And after some time using it and learning about it from trial and error, this is what I learned. The first one is to, of course, be precise in prompts. This is super important. I'm insisting a lot on this because it's the most important thing you can do. Give as much content and explanation as possible. Then you need to modify your code as a starting point, but not base your whole code on it. Go test, go debug. Remember that it cannot run your code. So it's very important that you don't copy 500 lines of code and hope that it works. Test it and debug it a lot. Then this one, I love it. If you know, you know. If you know you want to use OpenCV, if you want to use Scikit, if you want to use Matplotlib or Seaborn for generating plots, tell it. Tell that it should use this or that library or do it one way or another. If you don't want a four inside of four, tell it and do it as effective as you can and these kind of things because you know things for Python programming. So tell it some things is not that obvious and then use it for what it's worth. As I told you before with LLMs that they're worth with listings, here we can say that LLMs for Python programming are worth for efficiency. If you have these inside the four that you did in your first year of PhD, and now you find that it takes 15 seconds to do this for ask for a more efficient way, it's gonna work is one of the things that is useful. For commenting and following the same style all over your code, give it. Give one function to any chatbot that you usually use or the BioimageIO chatbot and say, please follow this style all along my code for commenting. This works also really well. Finding different solutions, again, listing. So use it for what it's worth. And the BioimageIO chatbot, we go again to it. How can you access it? This is what is interesting. So as I told you that the BioimageIO chatbot was born. Okay, so you can access it through the Bioimage Models website or repository as it was born as an assistant to the Bioimage Models website, but you can only access Melman from here. Then we have a dedicated web page for it. So it's just the chatbot, and you can here select which of the assistants you want. And the last assistant that I said that is to run cell posts, you can only do it through the website, through our website. And by the way, as we are paying for it, you have like 20 queries per hour. I don't think you will do all of them, but there's something that stops you from doing 100 queries 1 hour. And then you can do it through GPTs. You can look for the GPT in the GPT store, and we're there. Here also, it's unlimited, of course, because it's on the GPT store, but you can always also only use Melman. So if you want to use the tutor or the analyst, you have to do it through the webpage. So, in case there are anyone who wants to contribute in this is just a bit of spam. Here's our GitHub repo, but you can contribute by developing extensions. All of the chatbot works with extensions. For example, the RAG functionality is the extension. The running models is the extension. You can develop a model, an extension to, for example, move a microscope. This is something that I will explain more in depth in the I2K workshop, for example, that we're going to work in developing extensions. So if any developer in the room, you can also contribute with that. It's not very difficult. Then adding tool documentation. If you have a tool and you want to use the BioimageIO chatbot as an assistant for your tool, you can also add the documentation in the chatbot and use it for that. Please use it for, don't use it, but use feedback and user experience. There are thumbs up, thumbs down, and buttons to put feedback because we use that. We don't retrain anything, but we use it to tune the prompts. At the end, the BioimageIO chatbot, how we've constructed is that it reads our prompts behind it. So we might tune these prompts and might tune or handle errors or specific cases through this feedback. So for us, it's very important to continue with this and to improve a lot. And then always can be sending PR to our GitHub project. And then I added his because he's what I have learned from the BioimageIO chatbot. These are like the take-home messages for me, which were the first one is to improve your documentation. Since now, the documentation shouldn't be only human readable as it has been, always, but AI processable. This means that if you're reading a documentation and you want that the documentation is easily accessed and findable, it has to be self-contained and self-explanatory, the documentation itself. Don't have to go look for half the documentation in one page and the other half in another page. Then, of course, this one is very important here today is work on prompt engineering. You will see that if you work on that, you learn on that. You don't need to do a course on prompt engineering. Just test it, try it, change, ask the same question once and another time, but just changing the prompt, you will see that your answers will get better and better. And then the third thing was, do we need documentation? I wrote some documentation for it, but we don't have it available because we think that the best thing is that if you want to know anything about a chatbot, ask the chatbot, right? This is our claim. This is the place to test it. Of course, the acknowledgements. These are only three of the team, me, Wei, and Wanlu, in one talk that we gave in June. I find these pictures very funny because we were very happy. It was summer. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the chatbot, even if it's with PRs in reviewing our manuscript and everything. All help is always welcome. And then that's me, that's my contact. And now we can go to questions and we can do demos and we can do everything at the same time because depending on the question you have, we can ask it to the chatbot.